Morning, Joe and the Pro. Two pros today. Tony Finn from WagerTalk.com and Ralph Michaels, Cal Sports, also from WagerTalk.com. I'm the Prez. And, well, 3 shows a day right now. Let's go through the menu, give out a promo, and then we're going to talk about a couple of important NBA games tonight and a real quick preview on our preview show, which is tomorrow. With 3 shows today, Puck Time, myself and Carm, we take apart all 5 NHL games tonight. The playoffs start tonight. It's so exciting. First pitch, guys. We started first pitch today. Dave Koken was our first guest. We'll be doing first pitch every single day right through the summer. We're basically 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, at our WagerTalk channel on YouTube, WagerTalk TV. We take apart every baseball game on the card. So, Tony, I think you're coming on tomorrow. Every game that starts after 7, we will be talking about and giving opinions about. So make sure to check in on that. And, of course, Morning Joe today, we're talking NBA. Tomorrow, guys, 4 shows. We have Puck Time with Carmen, myself. Morning Joe will have Marco and Teddy. We're going to be doing the NBA playoff preview show, in which we'll talk a little bit about today. We will have first pitch tomorrow with Tony. And most importantly, I will be doing a Game of Thrones preview show. We'll also be talking about who to bet in Game of Thrones. I have a very special guest on tomorrow, so make sure to check in on that. Boys, crazy shit in the NBA for the last game, for the last night of the season. Charlotte can win, can get in with a win and a Detroit loss. And we've got the Clippers in San Antonio, Oklahoma City. We got Houston and Denver. Teams are still playing for seeding. And let me tell you something. Nobody wants to play Golden State. So, Portland and Houston, important stuff going on. It's important all around. It's going to be an exciting night. I will be watching none of it. I'm all about the hockey. Tony, before we get into the games, dude, tough loss yesterday in baseball. Ralph, you're Mr. Team Player at WagerTalk.com. Tony came into yesterday on an 8-0 baseball run. I think he started the baseball season 13-1. Freaking ridiculous. He was the $2 Tuesday, the most sold play of the week. Milwaukee Brewers, they lost. Murphy's Law, dude. You win 8 games in a row, and all 8 games you don't make as many sales as you make in the one day.
Yeah.
And then you shit the bed.
Well, and if you watched the game, and I did, the 6 runs that the Angels scored in the first inning, there was really 1 hard hit ball, 2 hard hit balls. 3 runs on the board and 5 singles that were bloops, and those things happen. Hallion was not giving the high strike, and I knew at that point in time, I said, we got some issues. And again, it is what it is. We start again today.
Tony, great point though for our listeners. You talked about having an umpire. Live betting, jump on those umpires that have that small strike zone or that big strike zone for a totals play. Is just a great way to go finding value in baseball.
Know your umpires. They're not the final word, but they have typically the average Joe doesn't even consider who the umpire is. They don't even consider it, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talk about the umpires all the time, and it's not, obviously the refs are going to make a difference in the NFL on bad calls or good calls. This isn't a bad call, good call scenario with the umpires. This is the fact that these umpires legitimately have different strike zones. Yes. And those strike zones come into play big time. Not only does it create balls and strikes or walks and hits, but it also changes the pitching count. It brings in relievers earlier. I think the umpires are probably the most important, that and the wind. and the size of the stadium, the three most important factors in totals. And you're right, Tony. Nobody pays any attention to the umpires unless you're a professional baseball batter, which the three of us are.
Yes.
Guys,
and to interrupt you, I mentioned typically I will never do a write-up. I'll never release a game without mentioning the umpire.
He's Tony Finn, Ralph Michaels with us. I'm the Prez. It's Morning Joe and the Pro. Guys, I've got a 5-unit hockey play tonight to start the NHL playoffs. I'm really psyched about it. It's the highest rated play we offer at WagerTalk.com. It's regularly $30. You can get it for $15. Use the promo code NHL15. Boys, let's get to it. Tony, I'm going to go to you first. Detroit must win tonight. Absolutely must win. They're minus 10. 10.5 at some places on the road against the New York Knicks. And we know the Knicks suck. Dude, 17 wins all season. What a complete joke. At home, they're 9-31. But I'll tell you something, and we've seen this year in and year out. We speak about this in every sport. When a team is in must-win mode, especially late in the year, that is no assurances that they are going to win. The only reason that Detroit is in a must-win mode tonight is because Detroit is not a good team. Right. And that's just the bottom line. The Knicks are playing Game 7 of the championship series tonight.
Yes.
They are going to bring it. They want to win. They want to finish the season off strong. The question is, can they get Charlotte to squeak in? And conversely, can Detroit cover 10 points? Tony, I go to you first.
No, I would not be backing Detroit to cover 10 points tonight against the Knicks, despite the fact that they are probably a touchdown better than the Knicks per se. But you're right. Really, Detroit, you mentioned that they're furiously trying to get a spot because they're not very good. Not only that, they had a furious and emotional win last night, a fourth quarter rally that is regardless. We're in the 82nd game of a grueling NBA schedule. It's grueling. I don't care what people say. They say all these guys jogged up and down the courts. This is 82 games in the NBA on hardwood is brutal on whether you're a rookie or a veteran. And tonight, while I'm not on the game, I would be all over the Knicks at home at Madison Square Garden, just doing everything they can to spoil Detroit's party.
Ralph, do you have any thoughts on this game? Any stats, anything we need to know? Teams in a must-win mode, minus double digits on the road. Last game of the season with one shoe on and one shoe off, a green lace, a red lace, short pants, long pants, undershirts, tank tops. What do you got?
I don't have a stat to go with that, but I certainly have a couple thoughts. This NBA season is very unique because the college basketball season got stretched out a week. Normally the finals is about April 1st, but with the finals this past Monday, we saw only 2 games on Saturday going against the Final Four, no games on Monday. That's leaving them playing back-to-back nights on Tuesday and Wednesday. That hasn't happened the last few years. You have Detroit, who's coming from a 22-point deficit against Memphis to come back. You have injuries where Detroit may not even be without Blake Griffin tonight. He injured his knee. If he plays, he's limited. And I disagree with you to a degree. New York, the only reason New York now wants to win this game is because they only have 17 wins and they're clear of Phoenix 19 wins and Cleveland 19 wins.
It's a great point.
Outdone. They achieved their goal of tanking and getting the last place. So yes, now if they win this game, that's fine. But I agree with Detroit expending all that injury coming from 22 points down and being without Blake Griffin or perhaps being with a limited Blake Griffin. I think must-need turns into pressure, which turns into a tighter team, which turns into not covering a double-digit spread.
He's Ralph. I'm the Prez. Tony's with us. Guys, the next game I want to talk about, well, Orlando and Charlotte. Really the 2 key games of the night. Detroit wins, Charlotte's out. Detroit loses and Charlotte wins, and it's the other way around. Both games tip off at 8 o'clock. There'll be scoreboard watching for sure, which makes this Charlotte game interesting, guys, because Charlotte here is -4. If Detroit is up by 20, 30, 40, 100, if Detroit is up and this game ends 2-3 minutes earlier than the Charlotte game, Charlotte's going to slump in. They're going to, they could be up by 6 or 7 with 5 minutes to go and call it a day if Detroit wins. So a tough bet. They're playing Orlando. Orlando already has secured a spot, but they're playing against Brooklyn for a seed to play Philly or Toronto. I don't know who you'd rather play. I mean, I think you'd rather play Philly than Toronto, but we'll talk about all of that tomorrow on our NBA preview show. Ralph, I go to you first. -4 for Charlotte, the over and under 218. What are you doing in this game?
I like the under. Again, we have pressure on Charlotte. We have an Orlando team that over the past 30 games has held opponents to 44% shooting. They play a very shallow bench. They only got a couple guys on the bench. Their starting five is very consistent. They're going to play those guys. They're going to try to get momentum. I like the dog, and I like the under in this game.
Tony.
I have faded Orlando on a number of occasions this year. Earlier in the season, it really benefited me. Late in the season, it did not. As Ralph mentioned, they've really played much better defense. And again, much of this has to do with who they've played. But Orlando had a pretty tough schedule going down the stretch, and they're going to finish 500, win or lose. They've won 41 games already, and all this that we've discussed, and I think Ralph would probably agree, and you would too, Lawrence, and that is that there's some tiebreakers, et cetera, in NBA and divisions are silly in the NBA at this point in time. I don't get it. I don't understand it because of the playoff formula or format per se. Should we have NBA teams that are below 500 playing for a slot in the postseason? What are the Hornets? 39-42, I think they're 39-42.
Well, we see this every blue moon in the NFL too, brother. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. You go over to hockey and you look at a team like Montreal who didn't make the playoffs by 2 points, and they were well above 500. It would be interesting to have, you've got 8 coming out of each conference in the NBA. It would really be an interesting dynamic for a team to come in 7th and 8th in one conference but have a losing record and ultimately lose the right to move on and have the 2 teams in the next conference who didn't make the playoffs with a winning record take their spot. It's not going to happen, but it would be cool. It would be fun.
In defense of the NFL, it's a 16-game season. This is an 82-game season, and you can't win more than half your games. So that's my argument.
But if you have the elite competition, I mean, it's a cycle. It goes back and forth. There's times it happens, there's times it hurts you. It depends. The best 4 teams in the league. I mean, so to me, you got to play it out. You're only playing those Western teams twice, so it's not fair to compare them. If they went to a more balanced schedule, Tony, I could see your point.
I agree with that as well.
Guys, I want to give out a play for tonight. Feel free to add your thoughts, but here's really the bottom line. Dave Koken didn't play NBA all year. He released 1 play. 1. It was last night. It was a 5-unit play, and it was on Miami, Dwayne Wade's last game, and it won. Miami just came out firing last night. They beat Philadelphia 122-99. These are grown men. Women can have multiples. Men don't. Miami is done. Miami is showing up literally in a chastity belt tonight. Brooklyn -5.5. I'd be surprised if Brooklyn wins this. I wouldn't be surprised if Brooklyn wins this game by 20 going away. I understand Brooklyn's in, but I feel like Miami will not show up at all tonight. Brooklyn -5.5 for the Prez. Tony, Ralph, either of you?
I've got a free play. I'm selling it right now, WagerTalk, for $25, but do not buy it. It's this play. And sort of the same thing, motivation, not quite as big as Dwayne Wade's final home game. But, Atlanta and Indiana are playing tonight. An Atlanta team not in the playoffs that's lost a couple games. The Pacers, a playoff team. The Pacers are resting at least 3 players. All 3 players that played 81 games are not playing tonight. And listen to this coach quote from Lloyd Pierce, the head coach of Atlanta. We rested our starters against Milwaukee, and we called it load management because we were concerned about tonight. It would be a good day to sit them against Milwaukee. We knew we weren't going to win, but it's really important for us to come out as a team, finish the season on a strong note, and win this final home game. It's almost like preseason football when you have a team that wants to win against a team that doesn't care to win and is resting starters. The line's already climbed 2 points. It was 1 this morning. It's now up to 3. I posted it at WagerTalk. But again, it's on sale. Don't buy it. You're getting it right here.
And you know, that's one of the beauties of these shows. That's a pay pick that you just gave out for free. Tony, any thoughts on either of those 2 games, Brooklyn game and the Atlanta game?
Let me just mention this. Last night I didn't release, but personally played. A situation was similar. It's
Dallas.
Kind of wishy-washy. Washington didn't want to lose their 50th game. Boston had nothing to play for. They rested 3 or 4 of their players. Washington has a 21-point lead in this game and lose by almost double digits. So in that scenario, Washington's at home. They don't want to lose. You would think you get a 21-point lead against a team that could care less. So that's my argument to what you're discussing, but I wouldn't argue with either of what you said. I like Milwaukee tonight as well, despite the fact that they don't have to win. Oklahoma City's desperate. But I'll take Milwaukee at home. They hit their 3-pointers. They'll beat Oklahoma City, and they're getting 5.
Speaking of Milwaukee, Tony, and tomorrow, guys, remember Marco and Teddy are on Morning Joe and the Pro, and we're doing our NBA preview show. But I want to talk to you about Milwaukee right now. This team is the number one seed in the East. The Greek Freak is unbelievable. People are expecting a big run from them in the playoffs. I don't know, man. I don't think this team is as well balanced as everybody thinks. And they're young. And we've seen this with a lot of young teams. Look, would I be surprised if they're out in the first round playing Detroit? Yes. But I think Detroit's going to give them all they can. And I think, Milwaukee is a overvalued team going into the NBA playoffs. Ralph?
Yeah, well, I did a video with Teddy last week. If you go to WagerTalk.com and take a look at it, we talked about some playoff scenarios. And I agree. I said I'd be fading Milwaukee in the first round as a double-digit favorite. Again, being from Cleveland, being through all those LeBron years, watching LeBron come out and beat the Pistons and then take the next step. I think Toronto's the team that always fell short against Cleveland, but not without LeBron. You've got to learn to been there and done that to be able to advance to these finals, Eastern finals. And I think Toronto's that team this year. I think Philly's too young. I think, Boston has a chance, but you just can't play like you have up and down all year and then flip the switch on. It doesn't. So to me, I have Toronto circled as the team out of the East.
I mean, obviously I live in Toronto and I feel the same way, but, we'll talk about this tomorrow. I think Toronto can win it all. I think they're going to struggle, obviously have a tough time if they play Golden State or Houston at the end of the day. But, the team, Ibaka and OG and, Leonard and Lowry, this team, and I've gone blank on Siakam, who's going to be an absolute monster. Toronto can shoot with anybody, and they can play D when they need to. I'm with you. Toronto is definitely the favorite in the East, but I think there's also going to be value on taking them to win it all, especially because they can shoot. And in order to beat Houston and Golden State, if they meet them in the championship round, they're going to need to shoot, and they can.
One note on that, for those people that want to bet Toronto now, Houston has fallen to the 4th slot, which means they are going to have to play Golden State early. So all of a sudden, that puts one of those teams out having to play that difficult situation early, which puts it where Golden State was used to playing 4-game series and sweeping. In the second series now, if you have to play Houston and you go 7 games and get extended, that puts the Western Conference Finals in a much difficult situation, and then the championship in a much difficult situation.
Love it. Tony, any quick last thoughts?
No, I will say this. Speaking to Toronto and Milwaukee, as you two have done already, I trust Toronto by head and shoulder, by measure over Milwaukee, because I do not trust Milwaukee defensively, and we all know that the NBA playoffs is a different animal than the regular season. You must be able to defend to some degree, and I have very little faith in Milwaukee doing such.
He's Tony, I'm the Prez, Ralph Michaels, Morning Joe and the Pro, done. Puck time, done. First pitch, done. Lunchtime, about to begin. Thank you, my brothers, and we'll speak to you both next week. Tony, tomorrow, first pitch, every baseball game after 7 o'clock. Ralph, you're the best. Love you all. Have a great day today. I know you're all in studio doing all of the WagerTalk videos. Enjoy.
Good luck tonight.